Now, part of your success at Dionysus has been to do with, shall we call them, high-volume heavy hitters. If you don't mind me bringing up Fuzion being a
Sure.
healthy example of that, how did the Fuzion relationship come around, and how did you recognize the potential for that wine within the Ontario and or Canadian market?
Yeah, our business goes all the way from the almost floor price, which is a social reference price point that the government has as a minimum price that you can actually sell alcohol. We go all the way from there, all the way up to hundreds of dollars per bottle of Brunellos, Amarones, and Grand Cru Bordeaux. So we kind of cover the entire spectrum of the wine world. But yes, we've had a few major successes of high volume, value price products. Fuzion was one of them. The Fuzion story was interesting. I almost said no to Familia Zuccardi when they first approached me because the Argentinian category wasn't that significant
At that point.
This is mid 90s. I think it was 1997. 2007. Sorry, late 2000s. It was 2007. And we just had an experience with an Argentinian brand that didn't work out well, and we weren't that interested. Fuzion was interesting because it was already a relatively big brand at the SAQ in Quebec, and with them we were looking to replicate. And really, what it was, and when we look at our products, is ultimately you need to find good producer partners and partners who are able to make wines the best of what the terroir and the vineyards give them. We always think we can try and craft a product and deliver a particular style, but you can't get different with RTDs. As I said, the creativity and things we can do there's almost no limitations. But with wine, and I think one of the things that really excites me about wine, especially when you have the luxury and the opportunity to go and visit a lot of these vineyards, is when you go to Fuzion and you see the vineyards and you realize the quality that's in the bottle came from that vineyard.
Right.
And they didn't try to make something that the land didn't naturally give them. And the same thing with Toro Bravo is we didn't try to play around, and which is Toro Bravo is our more recent success just over the last few months. Is we didn't try to pump it up with a lot of artificial sugars and add tannins and oak chips. We really just made a really clean style of Tempranillo Merlot that really was what was naturally coming, and I find the consumers respond to that.
And when Fuzion was at its peak, shall we say, what kind of volumes are we talking about that you were moving through Ontario?
At its absolute peak, we were selling over 1,000 cases a day. I think we had 1 month where we sold 30,000 cases. That's actually sales over the counter.
Good Lord.
Which is ridiculous type of numbers. So that was at its peak, and we had lots of stores that had big displays at the front, and there was the Fuzion frenzy. One store in Ottawa had to call the police because people were fighting over a $7 bottle of wine.
Didn't know about that.
People were putting it on Kijiji for $20 a bottle, which of course is bootlegging, and I had to send an email to Kijiji saying, you might want to have these taken down.
Are you making this story up? Is this true?
No, these are all true stories. None of these are made up. These are all true. So it was interesting to go through that. There's a lot of that goes in the background. I mean, a lot of people think it's, just go find an inexpensive product and put it in a fancy label and just throw it on the shelf at the low price. There's a lot of logistics background that need to be done. This morning I was talking to the owner of Wines and Company that produces Toro Bravo. So we're going through a whole planning grid about when can we ship, can we move containers early. I'm talking to the LCBO inventory manager 2-3 times a week. So there's a lot of coordination, a lot of logistics, and a lot of work to maintain that quality and the consistency. And I think those are two things that both with Fuzion and Toro Bravo that we've been able to do to make sure we're continuing to deliver value for the consumer. We don't disappoint them.
So you're obviously a man who has an eye for trends in the wine industry, in the wine consuming public in Ontario. What are your thoughts about the future? What do you see? What's next for Dionysus?
We're always looking at data is really important. You talk about things that have changed in the wine industry. 20 years ago, we weren't even looking at data, what was available to us from the LCBO. So we're always looking at categories, we're looking at competitors, who's growing, who's declining, we're looking at economic trends. And alcohol beverage, there's a crossover. We need to look at what's happening in spirits, in cider, and how do those trends migrate to other categories. We're now seeing a trend with rosé wines, and you see what's happening with Provence rosé and other rosés. Well, that's now spilling over into, pink gins, rosé RTDs, rosé ciders.
Interesting.
So everyone's trying to capitalize on the pink trend, which is great. Anything that adds excitement and gets people talking about alcohol beverage, and I'm going to say always with the mind of social responsibility, and think in the for all of us in the business who have done this it's always in the back of our minds that everything we do, whether it's an event, a tasting, a dinner, there's a social responsibility angle. We just did a large pop shop event, and we were very conscious of making sure we had taxi chits at the end of the evening, that we were controlling the number of samples that were going out, that there was sufficient food. So everything's done with that kind of that focus that we need to. Everything needs to be through that social responsible lens.
One last thing. The last time we spoke, you were telling me about your forays into Spanish white wine.
Yes.
What's going on there?
So the category is underdeveloped.
Yes,
here.
very much so.
The total Spanish white category is only about 10,000 cases. That's total vintages and general list.
Wow.
There's only 2 general listings that have been around for a long time, and both are very good value wines. And the LCBO has brought a number to market. They haven't. All the new ones haven't performed well over the last 10 years. They've ended up being discontinued. And when a brand gets discontinued at the LCBO, it really isn't. It's not a statement that the wine wasn't good value and it wasn't a good wine. It just simply wasn't able to sell enough to justify the LCBO keeping it on the shelves, just like any other retailer in the world. But we do have the Toro Bravo White coming. It's a Verdejo Sauvignon Blanc. It's 70% Verdejo, 30% Sauvignon Blanc. We should have that on shelf mid-June. So that'll be a very interesting launch to see if that can bring some attention and focus, much like Fuzion did, 10 years ago, where it brought attention to Argentina in general. And it helped grow the category, and the Argentinian white category was pretty non-existent, and it's now a quite vibrant category with a number of SKUs. So we hope with Spanish whites it's going to open people's eyes up. They're going to have to learn some new words like Verdejo and Albarino, and and that's the exciting thing is even Pinot Grigio, which is pretty mainstream. 40 years ago, a lot of Italian wineries couldn't sell Pinot Grigio.
Wow, wasn't that funny?
The winery we represent, Mezzacrona, actually couldn't find an importer to represent their product. So they had to open their own import company just so they could get their Pinot Grigio into the US and get it to the wholesalers and the distributors. So you never know where the next trends are. And yes, we're always looking ahead at what's new and exciting. Another fellow wine writer said, you don't always want to drink the same product every day. If you're married or have a long-time partner, yes, you need to spend time with the same partner. But at least with wine, you can experiment and have a different bottle of wine every night.
Ooh, that sounds very tempting to me. Alex, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, and glad you could make your way up here.
Take care. Bye-bye.